Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us. My name's Imani Rupert Gordon, and I'm the Executive Director for Affinity Community Services. Affinity is a social justice organization, and we work with Black LGBTQ women specifically on the south side of Chicago. I'm really excited to introduce our guest today. Today we have Mia Vivens. Mia is an actor, artist, and activist who is passionate about telling stories of Black and brown queer people. She's worked in theaters all over the Chicagoland area, and now she works for About Face Theater Company as the Associate Director of Outreach and Engagement. Mia, it's a pleasure to have you.
I'm so excited to be here.
Excited to have you.
Thanks.
Yeah. So let's jump right in.
Yeah.
If we could start off, I'd love to know a little bit more about you. Could you introduce yourself to our audience and then tell us about your professional trajectory and how you ended up working at About Face Theater Company?
Definitely. So my name is Mia Vivens once again, and I went to school for acting, and I'm still an actor. And so I came to About Face via the acting path. So I was in the city for the first time, sort of starting to feel out what different theaters were here, and found About Face. And the second I found About Face, I was like, okay, this is the place that I need to be, because they make stories about queer people, and I wanted to make stories about people like us. I think the first email I ever sent said something like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I just found this theater. I'd love to work for you." I auditioned, and then I started to work with them from there. So I was an actor, and then I directed the show the next year, and now I run the program.
Wow.
I just worked my way up the ladder.
I love it. I love it.
Yes. So what I do for About Face now is we take an outreach show to schools in the Chicagoland area. So it's a 30-minute show. We talk about gender and sexuality, and then we do a talk back immediately afterwards, and we start to open up the conversation about gender and sexuality in schools all throughout the Chicagoland area. So it's a really cool gig, and it's always changing. Everything's different every single time we go to different schools.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a fun job.
It sounds like it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So this is the first time many of our viewers are hearing about Face Theater. Could you tell us a bit more about the work that you all do there?
Yes. So About Face Theater has been around for over 20 years now. It's really exciting. I like to say that we're moving out of our teen years and into our early 20s. So we're just starting to try some new things out and really beginning to settle into ourselves. And so we've been making stories about queer people for over 20 years. It really came out of a time when there was not a lot of media about queer people, and if there was anything, it was about white queer people. And so we started to make media about queer people, by queer people, for queer people, to start to open the conversation around gender and sexuality in a way that wasn't shameful or shamed or about HIV and AIDS, essentially. Our stories are so vast and so different, and we wanted to tell all of those stories in a theatrical way, through a theatrical lens. So that's when About Face Theater Company started, and the outreach program has also been going for about 20 years, so it's been a minute. We're doing it.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. And I know that you also have a really cool youth program that we'll learn a little bit about, but if you could tell us more about that, that would be awesome.
So About Face Youth Theater is one of the arms of About Face. So we do a regular programming show during the year, and then we do the youth show as well. And it's 13 to 24-year-olds. So we're located up in Edgewater, and youth come from all over the city to Edgewater every Saturday, and we host a youth-like community workshop, essentially. We do theater, games, theater work, and then they produce a show every year. This year the theme is horror, so we're following the election of the president, and the youth are starting to get in their feelings around it. And so what came out of that was horror, so the youth decided on this theme.
Wow.
And so we devised the show. It's really telling, yeah. It's really a youth-led organization. It's not an organization that says it's youth-led and really we're leading it. We're really allowing the youth to choose what it is they want to make a show about, which is a really cathartic experience, I think, for a lot of the youth. So the show's in development now, and then it'll go up during the summer. We don't have a name yet, but we'll keep you updated, and it's so fun. There's like a lot of blood and music. There's so many different elements that we get to sort of pull together, and that the youth get to take the helm of this thing and create whatever it is that they want to create. And we're there to help lead and guide them throughout that process. The youth theater is a huge part of About Face, and it's really central to the work that we do, the community and education of young people. It's really important to us and to us as queer people. And the ability to talk to one another and mentor young queer folks is really, really important to us and has been at the center of About Face for a long time. So it's a really beautiful program.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's exciting to be a part of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds wonderful. So About Face is different than other theater companies. Would you mind telling us why you think that is and how you're working to intersectionalize queer storytelling?
Absolutely. So, like I said, About Face has been doing queer storytelling for over 20 years. That's longer, essentially, than anybody else has been doing it. So we're really good at it. So we've been telling those queer stories for a long time, and we're starting to develop work that intersectionalizes queer storytelling. Intersectionalizes meaning telling the stories of Black and brown queer folks or queer folks with differently abled queer folks. Just starting to open and push the doors apart on what queer storytelling can look like. It's not always white people with short hair. There are other ways to tell queer stories like this, like us. And those stories are just as important. I think growing up, I didn't see anybody who looked like me who was queer. So I was like, well, I must not be queer then. There must be something else going on. And I think had I seen someone like me earlier on, I may have had more access to that part of myself at an earlier time. And so what About Face is doing is the work day to day to start to have those conversations around gender and sexuality and starting to intersectionalize those stories. You know, the stories of us and of our queer ancestors, Black and brown queer ancestors, have been erased for a long time in this country and by white queer people. And I think there's some ownership that needs to be had around that, especially when you think of Stonewall and the pictures that blew up were these, you know, these white queer people. The reality is these Black and brown drag queens really like broke the door down. And we are reclaiming those stories in a way that is very empowering and very beautiful. And it's just the beginning. We won't stop.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
It's so important because we have to be able to see ourselves represented. It's so hard when we don't.
Yes.
And it's not just one part of our identity. I love that you're so intentional about being intersectional because there's lots of ways that we feel marginalized, and it doesn't help you to be able to be queer and feel queer but then not see yourself represented racially.
Absolutely.
You know,
it starts to take a toll on you to not be able to see a reflection of yourself because you start to think about, is something wrong with me? Is there something about me that isn't normal? And the ability to normalize our stories and tell our stories in a way that isn't shameful or shamed, I can't begin to express how much that means to me to be able to do that, and what it means to a lot of the youth that we talk to on a day-to-day basis. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And not making them choose between their identities. You know, we don't experience our identities. I'm not feeling more queer than I'm feeling Black right now.
No,
you know? Kind of feeling them. Yeah, they're just, you know.
Just both at the same time. Can't hide either of those things.
That's true.
Absolutely.
That's so wonderful and so lovely that you're being so thoughtful about that.
Yeah, we have, and I think we have to encourage everybody to be thoughtful about it, right? It's not just a conversation that we should have as Black queer women. Of course, it's important to us, but also our allies within race and within gender and sexuality. Those people also need to be pushing the boundaries too, and the more we can encourage each other to do that, I think, the better. The more normal.
I love it.
The easier. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So, what's keeping you busy right now?
I'm so busy.
Yeah.
You know, I never sleep. Never. I never sleep. So I have been doing the outreach show, which is starting to pick up now. Schools are starting to realize they have like a little bit of extra funds. It's the diversity funds or the arts funds that they feel that they haven't used yet. And so we get to use them now.
Okay.
So schools are reaching out to me, and we're doing a lot of shows. So today we're at Richard T. Crane Medical Group, which is not that far from here, actually. Having conversations with those students around gender and sexuality, and the Schuler Scholars, which was a really beautiful experience. So the outreach show is definitely keeping me busy, and then I'm assistant directing Bull in a China Shop, which is our main stage show. It's about the suffrage movement, so Jeanette Marks and Mary Woolley and the suffrage movement. And what's really interesting about it is you would think that every woman in that time was like pro-suffrage, but the reality is that it was a really sticky situation. And I think that's so resonant of the things that we're experiencing now in this country. You would think, I brought this up earlier, I'm going to do it.
Okay.
You would think that Kanye you would think that Kanye West would be on the side of black and brown people and wouldn't have that horrible red hat on. The reality is that things are sticky and they're not what you expect them to be. And so what Bull in a China Shop does is it really starts to bring that into the present. And also the suffrage movement, we kind of think of it and we think of a lot of white women. Yeah. And the reality of the suffrage movement is that it was happening in tandem with the civil rights movement, and both things were pushing at the same time, and one would not have worked without the other, and the suffrage movement would not have worked without brown and black people as a part of it. And what's cool about what we're doing is it's not all white people on stage. It's brown and black people telling the story of the suffrage movement. And we just started rehearsals, but it's really exciting. Everybody in the room is so intelligent and it's just awesome and ready to tell the story. And we're going to do it together. It's really exciting. Yeah, so that opens May 24th and runs through June 30th. We'd love if you join us. And if you join us, that'd be really fun.
It sounds amazing.
Are you going to come?
I will definitely. I will definitely.
Cool.
It sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And that's, it's such an interesting conversation. I don't want to go too deep into this, but, oppression is insidious,
Yes.
And I think it's so interesting how people of color can't be racist, but it doesn't mean that we can't be problematic.
Oh, yes.
And I think that is kind of what we see play out, and it's the same dynamic that you're talking about.
Absolutely.
We start subscribing to these same ideals, and it's dangerous. It's dangerous.
It is dangerous.
And it's intentional, this
Absolutely.
is how the world is set up this way. So
and I think we have to check ourselves, no, we can't be racist, but they're problematic. Sometimes I say problematic things, and I'm like, let me back that up. Where did that come from,
Right.
And it's these socialized ideas and these socialized norms that are so deep inside of us that we don't even know they're there.
Yeah.
Starting to unpack the way that we address other people or look at other people, how we take up space in the world, especially as women, as black women. We're just told to take up less space and be quieter and smaller. And I think that the more we can push against that, the better. And start to just ask ourselves the questions of, what can I do better? How can I be a better ally? Yeah. It is not all happening to us. We're also doing things, and we can be a part of that change. And I think that's really important. That's what's important to me about storytelling and about theater is the ability to tell a story is the ability to take action. And it may seem small, but like we said before, the reflection of ourselves on the television screen, on the stage, it's something that we need as human beings to be able to talk things like that out and give ourselves the time to process and live in those truths. And that's why I do the work that I do.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So I am curious to know, is there a play that really inspired you, that changed your outlook on life?
That's a good question.
Yeah?
Oh my gosh. I don't even know how to answer. Okay, let's see. I have to, this is so cliche. Okay. Don't hate me.
Okay.
Rent. I have to say Rent.
Not mad at that. Not mad at that.
Are you sure?
No, I love Rent. It's one of my favorite musicals as well.
I remember seeing Rent, the movie Rent, learning all the words and then being in my bathroom, singing all the words and not identifying as queer yet, but definitely there was something going on. Right. I knew all of the words. My mom knew all of the words. That's how much I sang it, is that my mom also was keyed into the fact that I loved Rent, So I think Rent changed my life. Just that access, and also seeing a black queer person, Mimi, and seeing people with HIV and AIDS, which I had no contact with at all. Rent was a game changer for me. So basic, but it's the truth.
No, I don't think it's basic at all. I mean, there's a reason that it's so popular. I think it resonated with a lot of people.
Yes.
And it was doing something. I thought it was so brilliant too. The AZT break.
Yes.
When I just thought that was such an interesting part to put that could have easily been left out. And
Yes.
I thought that was so powerful.
So powerful.
Especially for at the time. When you think about that, that's
when
what
did it
folks
come
had.
out?
So Rent was, oh my goodness, I want to say, was it 95, I want to say?
Yeah, I want to say the 90s.
I know.
I'm not going to
Don't quote us on that.
I'm not going to age myself, but I think I was like 5. When
Was
that came
it?
out.
90, I mean.
By the time I was watching it, it was definitely like older. Like an older movie.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah, we've
That's
been
a good
here for
one.
a second.
Yeah, that's
You
it.
You can't tell because of this melanated skin.
Right, exactly.
We're looking great,
Yes.
but we've been around the block once or twice.
This is by far my favorite interview.
Okay, good. Just
I
me
love
and myself.
it. Yeah. I love it. So I also want to know then, what is so this is the work that, Rent is the show that inspired you, but I'm wondering, what is the most difficult thing that you deal with in your work? What's the most challenging thing?
Yes. I made a joke about this earlier, but I'm serious that emails are the bane of my existence. Nobody likes emails.
No one.
I think what's really challenging is we go into so many schools, we interact with so many of the youth, and a lot of the situations are not what you would want them to be. A lot of family situations that are either unsafe or unsupportive or both. And we're able to meet students and have a conversation with them and share a little piece of ourselves, and they share a piece of themselves, and that's such a beautiful experience. And then we may never see them again. Like, maybe we're just like passing ships in the night and we have this experience together, and then you hope the best for them. And it's really hard to know that students are going through a tough time, especially in Black and brown communities. It can be really difficult to come out. It can be really difficult to have support from your family, and many of these high school students feel really stuck, and that's something that's resonating with me even from today. A lot of the conversations that we had with students today, I was just like in tears, and they were too, and we were able to share this moment together of being in the same space and being people of color and queer people of color, and that in itself is a beautiful experience. But the idea that I can't control what happens when they go home is really hard.
Yeah. And
you're doing what you can, and it's not enough, and you have to ask yourself the question of like, what can I do on a day-to-day basis? So the ability to like not have control of those situations is definitely the most challenging part of my job, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
sometimes, we've been to Shy Arts 3 years in a row. The first year that we did the show, and a couple students asked questions, and I got asked to prom, of course. I had to say no, obviously. But we went back to that school this year, and the student who I had spoken with for a long time was like, I don't think I can ever come out to my parents. I don't think it's going to go well. She came and ran up to the stage after the show, and she's like, I came out to my parents, and they're okay with it. And so being able to build a relationship, too, in a way that, like, you just see them once a year, but they change and they grow into themselves. And so for all the challenging parts, there's also really beautiful moments that feel like a dream, kind of.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
It's
cool.
so lovely.
It's a good job,
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
So for those of us that are not fortunate enough to work with you all, how can folks get involved?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So the youth theater is open to all youth. You just have to get yourself there, which we know transportation can be a bit of a bear. But we're right off the Red Line in Edgewater. So that's youth 13 to 24. So if you need a community of people like us, queer people, brown people, and you're interested in any part of theater, so you don't exactly have to be on stage, but there's jobs for tech and there's jobs for stage management. If you're interested in that at all, it's a great place to be. We also write all of our own work. So if you're a writer, if you have a journal, if you identify as a poet in any way, it's a great place to be. And then we have lots of internship and volunteer positions, which you can find online at aboutfacetheater.com or .org. You can get there either way. And then we're having Walkabout. Are you coming to Walkabout?
I am.
Okay,
this is
good.
going to be my first time, but I bought my ticket a few weeks ago.
So Walkabout is our annual gala. It's on May 11th. And it's at the Museum of Communications Broadcasting. Have you been there?
I have not.
You haven't?
I
Okay,
haven't,
it's
no.
so cool.
I've heard it was really great.
So it's SNL themed, and you're on this SNL set essentially. Okay. So we're doing an SNL theme. I'm gonna save my costume. You'll have to come to see what it is. Do you have a costume yet?
Oh my goodness. I had not planned on dressing up.
We're theater people, so we really commit to the dress up.
You know, I'm just realizing that right now.
Yeah.
That of course I have to
I'll
dress
let you
up.
think on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I have something to work.
Walkabout is May 11th. It's our annual gala. It's just a big gay party. And you know we know how to throw a party.
I do know that.
So it's at the Museum of Communications Broadcasting, and it helps to fund our whole year. So it funds the youth program, and it funds the main stage shows, and it's a really important time of community, and it's an important fundraiser for us. You know, I think a lot about community in the queer community, and you know, when queer people weren't out yet or weren't able to be out in the world, how they came together in bars all over New York and Chicago, and how that was such a scene. And it's important for us to come together and just party and have a good time, because out in the world, often we can't. We have to hide or shield ourselves in a way that many other people do not experience. And so not only is Walkabout just a great time, but it's also a time for us to come together as a community and be ourselves completely, totally, and 100%. And it's really important.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you can do it behind the Weekend Update desk.
Yeah.
Just like this.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, there is a Weekend Update desk.
That is what I'm most excited about.
I know, it's really cool.
That's always my favorite part of SNL.
It is.
So, have we missed anything? Is there anything else that you'd like us to know before we sign off?
I don't think so. I think we touched on everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you want to know? Burning questions?
Burning questions. I think we're good.
Okay.
It was such a pleasure having you.
A pleasure being here. I loved it.
Yeah, thank you so much. If you want to find out more about Face Theater, if you want to see their play, A Bull in a China Shop,
Bull in a China Shop,
or go to Walkabout, join us for Walkabout, you can find them at aboutfacetheater.org or aboutfacetheater.com. Both of them will get you there.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. And so we are Affinity Community Services. And you can see us here on CAN TV the fourth Friday of the month between 6:30 and 7, or you can find out more about us at affinity95.org. I want to thank you so much for being here. And remember, if you're going out and you want to impress someone, remember it's a dog-eat-dog world, not a dog-eat-dog world. Affinity's always trying to help you. Thank you so much. You have a good night.